say we have a balanced budget and walk home. But there's a lot of things I feel that still need to be addressed.
Okay. So that's another item for your list? Okay. Supervisor Colfax?
No, I've
Had your
heard from
answer?
staff.
Okay. To the CEO?
Get these buttons up and down buttons right yet. I was just going to concur with Allison's comments. I just sent an email off to Roland and ask him if we can meet him when we break for lunch, and we'll try and get some resolution on those issues. We also have anticipated programming some money out of our RDA for future borrowing for water projects that we're taking a look at also, and our goal was to bring that to you in September or October, but we can't make a recommendation at this time till we know what the financing structure is.
Okay. Supervisor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking of RDA, we have the notes from the auditor. The first item is on the exceeded budget side. We talk about the change in allocation from the Fort Bragg RDA increases that dramatically affects the county's portion, and then we also see it again at the 0809 estimates at the bottom. So one question I would like is direction on where in the budget and where is some kind of an allocation for that to be returned to coastal communities as it is in the agreement with the city of Ukiah. It's significant dollars, and I think the intention is there, and the intent should be that we actually see this as something that affects the coastal communities where that income was generated. So I want to know what the proposal is and where we are with creating some type of an equity in terms of those dollars received, because it's very clear that how it's operating in Ukiah, but it is not allocated in a similar fashion on the coast. So I want to make sure that the budget reflects that.
The amount that's shown from the Fort Bragg Redevelopment Agency in Budget Unit 1000 is merely a return of the money that the county had been contributing to that RDA from the inception of the RDA. With regard to specific projects that Fort Bragg RDA needs to do, that's something that's outside the county's funding.
Well, this was more of a question not for the auditor, but for the CEO with respect to how we get that equity issue going.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that the money comes from the Fort Bragg RDA pursuant to a settlement of a lawsuit, and therefore there are no strings attached to its use, and it was intended, in fact, to reimburse the county's general fund. The agreement with the Ukiah RDA is a completely different agreement, and the means of putting some of that towards a housing set-aside was built into the agreement and reflects a different situation that was addressing.
I understand that there's a difference, but all I'm saying is from the equity standpoint, yes, I know it goes to the general fund, but if we're looking at how I think the money should be allocated, I think it should be referenced as to some input back into the coastal communities. And I think this has been an issue I have tried to get economic development in the CEO's office to address for about 2 years. So I was hoping in this budget cycle we would be getting ahead of that. Yes, I know what you're talking about with respect to the technical aspects of the agreement, but I think that's missing the point. I think that what we need to do is have an equitable amount of money focused onto the coast. It's great that it's for everyone going to the general fund as it helps do this budget balancing, but I don't know that that's the best use of those dollars. And I know, again, it's an equity issue for the coastal communities, and I'm hoping that in some way that this budget is going to address that.
I think Tom wants to speak to the issue.
Well, unfortunately, this budget, I don't believe there's any way we can address it with the lack of funds that we have even to meet our current needs. I think Supervisor Smith brings up an interesting point, and certainly as we've started our research into the various RDAs throughout the county, each one does have a specific guideline of how the funds are to be utilized. The funds currently coming from the Fort Bragg redevelopment area are going into the county's general fund, and like every dollar that you get from various agencies, it's difficult to pinpoint where that general fund dollar goes, whether it be in an inland district or a coastal district. And certainly if you add it up, and we tried to do that through the budget process when we went over with departments, asking departments to tell us where they spent money, whether it was inland or coast. It was a very difficult proposition to come to. I don't know that we can address your concerns in the budget, again, because of the financial limitations, but I certainly think it's worthy of ongoing discussions as to what level of commitment do we have in specifically the Fort Bragg area, because that is what is generating that income. Additionally, I've heard some rumors that Fort Bragg is interested in renegotiating that RDA agreement, and perhaps at that time we could make it more specific to address some of your concerns.
Thank you. I think that does deal with it prospectively, but maybe it could be something the CEO's office could note going forward if it isn't delineated in this fiscal year, keeping that in mind and the inequity that's basically been created over the years, and looking at that as we go forward with recommendations for this fiscal year on how RDA dollars are expended. Thank you.
Staff will make a note of that. We also have some, we're only beginning to understand what the Willits RDA is about. So I think as you see us go forward,